Let me set the stage for you really quickly. It's the height of the pandemic, and every high school student is cripplingly addicted to TikTok, me included. Now, TikTok is drastically different for everyone due to its highly algorithmic approach to what you see on the app, so no one's For You page is going to look exactly the same. These were rather appropriately at the time called sides of TikTok, and the type of content you interact with sort of depends on which side you land on. Perhaps you watch and like a lot of content about music, you might end up on the jazz side of TikTok. Maybe you're into delicious looking slime made out of hazardous chemicals and you would end up on the slime side of TikTok. And maybe you watch a lot of videos about frogs and you get on the frog side of TikTok. Frog talk, if you will. There's no shame in it because you yourself have made the sandwich. You decide what you see. However, there are certain trends, sounds, or ideas that transcend these sides of TikTok, especially when the entire world is locked down with less of a world to see outside of their screens. 2020's lockdowns necessitated a new place for people to connect with each other, and for the youngest generation, TikTok was just that. TikTok created this sense of community in ways previously seen on Tumblr, Reddit, or YouTube, but the thing about TikTok is that it had something to prove to other social media platforms. It was for so long written off as this Gen Z infested hellhole with faux activism and rage instead of actual change, and yeah, that's what it is, but the people most passionate about the app wanted people to know that it could be so much more. If people on TikTok could create something tangible, something respectable, something that was too big to ignore on other platforms, maybe the app would be taken a little more seriously. Now, like I mentioned before, TikTok is whatever you want it to be, and so creativity across many different communities was sparked. And some of these massive collaborations reached such great success that it just can't be ignored. And I'm talking about the theater kids. Yes, in a world where live theater was indefinitely shut down, theater kids needed a place to get out there, get on stage, even if it was metaphorically. And TikTok was where they all went. Composers, musicians, actors, dancers, and singers all came together to create something bigger than themselves. They created full-fledged musicals entirely through TikTok. And how did it go? Well, there is no doubt in my mind, and it almost goes without saying, that there are a lot of really talented people on TikTok. In fact, I am fans and followers of many of them. Creators like Blake Rouse and Stacey Ryan are some of the best singers on the platform, and composers like Alex Engelberg and RJ Christian are insanely cracked at writing really catchy and enticing musical theater tracks. But I don't think TikTok is the most intuitive platform for these musicals to take place, and unfortunately, I think that translates into the quality and success of these productions. So I wanted to go through a history of sorts, an evolution of these TikTok musicals, because at the very least, they're really fun to watch. As of right now, there are only 2 full-length official TikTok musicals, and I wanted to watch them, have hot takes, maybe love them? Maybe I'll love them. So let's deep dive into the quarry that is the TikTok musical. This video is the first in a 2-part series that I'd like to do about these TikTok musicals, and I'd love to kick it off by talking about Ratatouille the musical. Part 1, Remy the Ratatouille. It all started in mid-2020 when Emily Jacobson created this TikTok.
Remy the Ratatouille, the rat of all my dreams. I praise you, my Ratatouille, may the world remember your name.
And it blew up within a few months, although it is a little hard to know just how far it circulated. TikTok is weird, but it became a pretty popular sound on the app, especially for lots of Ratatouille fan content, as the movie had been getting a lot more love around that time. TikTok sort of chooses a movie to go crazy over every few months, and it seemed that mid-2020 was Ratatouille's turn. It was soon created into this by TikToker and composer Daniel J. Mertzleft.
Remy the Ratatouille, the rat of all my dreams. I praise you, oh Ratatouille, may the world remember your name.
Daniel had done this sort of thing before with this proposed grocery store musical, which just turned into a long string of duets of people adding themselves as different grocery store items. So when he created this massive ensemble musical theater rendition of Emily's song, it sparked something similar. What if Ratatouille was a stage musical? So TikTok users got the idea in their head that Ratatouille would make an amazing stage musical. I mean, it had everything. Characters, plots, scenes. What else do you need? Of course, I'm being facetious, but people really did love this idea, and my first guess as to why was to just say nostalgia, but then I remembered Ratatouille is really great. It's probably my favorite animated film, let alone film, so I approached this idea with caution. Part 2, is this a good idea? Well, I'm not quite sure. Here are my reservations. First being that Ratatouille is decidedly not a musical, and that's okay. I wouldn't want it to be. It works perfectly fine without music, and not every Disney joint needs music for me to be interested, especially when Pixar is involved. Music is not necessary. That being said, adapting a film to a musical, especially one with a lot of nostalgia tied to it, is really risky, and the lack of songs sung by any of the characters in the original film adds to that risk. On top of that, how does one match the frenetic yet lush score set by Michael Giacchino? The score of the original film takes a lot of influence from French music, and I was worried that it might get entirely put aside at the behest of a musical theater score. And secondly, I just didn't think that it was realistic. I mean, I know Disney loves their Pixar representation, but a full musical felt too risky for them to actually do, especially on Broadway, and even more especially when there are no songs to get anyone into the theater. And it was also the middle of a pandemic. Ratatouille may be a perfect film, but it's hard to predict if it would be even close to a perfect musical, let alone a successful one. I can see them perhaps putting it in one of the parks, maybe the Hyperion Theater in California Adventure, but even then I just don't see Disney making that sort of call. But nevertheless, TikTokers started creating hundreds of songs to be put into this hypothetical Ratatouille musical. And even as the hater that I am, I thought a lot of these were really fantastic. And it wasn't just songs. Set designers were creating sets, digital artists were creating playbills, there were choreographers, lighting designers, stage managers, ushers. Okay, maybe there weren't any ushers, but I would have done it. I would have ushered for the Ratatouille musical. It became something bigger than I think anyone expected, which is really cool, but it was really unorganized, which is hard, you know, if you want to make a musical. Part 3, it's coming together. So this thing had to get organized if something was actually going to come to fruition. A lot of people tried to get this thing off the ground, but as always, a big business took over everything. It ultimately came down to Seaview Productions, a Broadway production company that actually has some pretty big shows under its belt. They announced that Ratatouille the Musical, also entitled Ratatouille, would premiere on January 1st, 2021, with permission from the mouse himself. Now, keep in mind that this was the height of the pandemic, and there were no live musicals on Broadway on this date. What does that mean? It means that Ratatouille is gonna be a virtual musical. Yay! So everyone was going to perform their parts from their home, and it was all going to be edited together to live stream on a website called Today Ticks. I have mixed feelings about this. I understand that no one knew when this trend was going to die. In fact, it was already losing steam at this point, and I understand that time is of the essence when creating something around an internet trend. But I don't know, something about this all seems rather lazy and impatient. To craft a musical, especially with so many people involved, is no small feat. And if you're going to make something with a guaranteed audience, doesn't it make sense to make something with flair and passion and passionate flair? On top of that, virtual musicals suck. Okay, maybe not inherently, but in my opinion, there's no way to make a musical work without a live audience. And I'm not talking about movie musicals because that's a whole different beast. I'm talking about a musical, what everyone there was trying to create. But that is all not to say that there is no passion put into this thing, because there is. I mean, I was actually really impressed by this thing before it actually happened, just for it happening. Also, it's in support of the Actors Fund, which is a charity that supports actors in time of need, and in the middle of a pandemic, that's not too shabby. So, maybe I'll be pleasantly surprised. Who knows? Let's jump into the Ratatouille musical, shall we? Part 4, the part that the video is actually about.
Hi, I'm Emily Jacobson, also known as @ejax. In August of 2020, I posted a 10-second video to TikTok.
Ratatouille the Musical starts with a message from the creator that started everything, and honestly, I find that really endearing. That's actually a really common thing throughout this entire musical, a general connection to where it all began, on TikTok. At the beginning, we get a really cool montage of all the TikToks that sort of helped create this thing and make it as big as it is, and that almost makes it worth being in a virtual setting. Almost. So when we jump into the actual show, we are introduced to...
Bonjour! Bienvenue à la French countryside. My name is Remy.
Titus Burgess as Remy the Rat. Yes, every actor in this musical is a famous actor. I'll just say I was not expecting to like Titus Burgess in this role, but he sort of ends up stealing the entire show. He's one of the only actors that makes his character his own, and that really adds to my enjoyment of this thing. I mean, if I wanted to see Patton Oswalt play Remy, I would go watch the actual movie.
We're about to go on a very big journey. A lot's about to happen. Honestly, I'm already exhausted. And that's just showbiz!
Right off the bat, however, you might notice that the audio is a little scuffed.
I am indeed a rat. I may not look like it, but I am.
I'm pretty sure everyone filmed this on their phones. Which is nice, I guess, at least it's consistent, but it would have been really nice to get everyone some quality microphones. Something really funny that actually happens throughout the entire show is that if anyone sings really loudly or screams a line, the audio gets noticeably quieter. I have two guesses as to why that is. One, the editor has really sensitive ears. My second guess is that your iPhone here has this audio leveler in it that means if you're too loud, it'll automatically turn you down. Look. See? Ratatouille the musical follows the plot of Ratatouille pretty much exactly. Remy introduces himself in a monologue, and we are introduced to his muse, the one and only Gusteau. Kevin Chamberlain, who you might know from Jesse, The Addams Family, or the worst character in Teen Beach Movie, plays Gusteau, and he does a really great job. He even sings a song that he originally wrote for the musical.
Anyone can cook. Anyone can cook. All you have to do is look inside yourself.
This song has been expanded into a more epic opening number, and I really like that. It's here when we get a taste of what we're really in for, and by that I mean some really awkward choreography. There are these two dancers that dance in just about every ensemble number, and yeah, I know that musicals have dancing, but it's just so awkward to watch them dance around in these little vertical rectangles with TikTok filters on them. They just look so silly. This number also does something that I really don't care for in musicals, which is reference other musicals. Remy has this line about not wanting to spoil the show, which is a nice homage to Sweeney Todd, but their joke is immediately ruined by them singing Sondheim's melody.
Steering a cook to boil a pot. Not that I'm trying to spoil the plot.
Not Remy, not Remy the Rat.
They also do Cats.
Ratical songs for ratical rats. Ratical songs for ratical rats.
Listen, I know I'm nitpicking the literal first number in this show, but what Something Rotten has done to musical theater is not being talked about enough. Anyway, we then jump into our first scene of the night, which, mind you, is done virtually. I wondered if they were going to do a Zoom call or something to pull this off, but it seems that they had everyone just read their lines independently, which leads to some cringe.
Wait. Is that Nutella? Or grape pomme?
You can smell all of that?
My brother Emil.
You might notice that in this scene we have Wayne Brady portraying Remy's father, a wonderful casting choice, and Adam Lambert playing Emil. Listen, I have tried to cast musicals ironically before, but even I couldn't come up with something this funny. What an insane casting decision. Listen, I'm of the opinion that stunt casting is a rather dangerous precedent, but I'm all for it if we're gonna get stuff like this. This is so stupid. I love it so much. I can't even get mad at it. It's just so absurd. We'll talk about this more later. Remy's dad sings a song about how they're rats and rats can't cook food. This is actually probably my favorite song in the whole musical. Perhaps it's because I love seeing Wayne Brady still getting cast in things, but the song itself is just so catchy, and I can just imagine it being so much fun to see on stage.
Why be downhearted when we're better off finding the good in the garbage, the right in the rot? That's what the life of a rat's all about. Ratatouille.
So, yeah.
And that's the thing with Ratatouille the musical. It's that it's not really a musical, it's an idea. It's a way to imagine how cool it would be if this were a real thing, and a way for the people who made it and put so much effort into it to see something come to fruition of all their hard work. And so judging it as a real musical is a little unfair, especially given the circumstances. That being said, let's keep going through this thing, but with that in mind. Remy continues to monologue because scenes are really hard to portray in this virtual musical setting, and our next scene takes place in the home of Mabel. Oh, don't remember Mabel? She's the old lady whose home home Remy's colony resides in. I didn't know that was her name until I looked it up, but look, we all learned something new. Mabel is played by Priscilla Lopez, who you might know as Diana from A Chorus Line. And if you didn't know she was from A Chorus Line, don't worry, they mention it constantly.
I barely escaped the kiss of death from that dancing woman.
Remy soon finds out from Mabel's television that Gusteau is dead.
It's Gusteau.
Gusteau's restaurant lost 2 of its 5 stars after a scathing review.
Much like in the original film, Mabel then tries to murder Remy and Emile, and the entire colony is revealed.
Kiss your friends goodbye. The short one and the fat one. I'll cut off their tails today, and you won't forget what I did to them, and I'll do to you.
The old lady tried to kill us!
Most of this scene is cut from the musical, but this scene of Remy falling into the sewer made me laugh very hard. Oh no, I'm falling. It reminds me of being on the playground as a little kid and pretending to die. Gusteau as a ghost, Ghosto if you will, comes to Remy to give him some advice. Kevin Chamberlain is using this really weird TikTok filter to portray himself as a ghost, and I cannot understand a single line that he says.
Remy, if you focus on what you left behind, you will never be able to see what lies ahead.
It like echoed and reverbed the hell out of his voice. Why did they do this? It was at this point, we were about 10 minutes into the musical, where I realized that Remy did not have an I Want song yet, but luckily he jumps right into it as soon as he sees Paris for the first time.
This is where I'm meant to be. This is what I must pursue. So I won't let a narrow-minded view.
This song is weird. Not only is it one of the most Steven Schwartzy songs I've ever heard, but it also kind of does a lot. Kind of a lot more than what most I Want songs do in a musical. Not only does it clearly display Remy's ambition to become a chef, but it also introduces Linguini, Colette, and Skinner as characters, and Gusteau's as a location. On top of that, Remy also makes the soup that proves he can cook in this song. This is where I feel that the runtime of this musical really brings the whole thing down. It's only 1 hour, which is not really nearly enough time to tell this story in its entirety. Hell, I'm doing a bad job at paring it down here. And I understand that people have a lower patience when it comes to a live stream, and this was all done during COVID, so it had to be done virtually, and it was pushed out a lot faster than it should have been. But it really does make the story harder to understand without these scenes or a previous knowledge of the movie.
Paris, I hope you're ready for Remy's restaurant. With style and innovation, that's truly your crown.
You might recognize that melody because it is the original TikTok sound that this all stemmed from. I'll be honest, I don't really like the original TikTok. I never found it that funny, but when it's in this setting, it gave me chills. Also, Titus Burgess hits this really delightful yet a little campy high note at the end of the song, which just makes me love him even more. Anyway, we move into Remy being caught by Skinner in one of the most awkward moments of the show so far.
But you know what I think, Linguini? I think you are a sneaky, overreaching, little rat!
The skinny boy scooped me up.
I don't even know what to say about that. Really quickly, I'd like to talk about Linguini and Colette, played by Andrew Barth Feldman and Ashley Park, respectively. Andrew Barth Feldman is an actor most known for playing Evan Hansen when he was only 16 years old, and I think he does a really good job as Linguini. Although I will say he's sticking to the book a little too hard. He's essentially just doing an impression of Linguini from the film.
Listen, I just don't want to disappoint anybody, because I've never disappointed anybody before, because nobody's ever expected anything of me before.
Ashley Park was on Broadway as Gretchen Wieners in Mean Girls, and she does a less good job as Colette, but she does have a lovely voice. Honestly, my biggest gripe with her is that she just can't pull off a French accent. I'm no dialect coach, so correct me if I'm wrong, but this accent does not sound right to me.
Stupid old men, ruse, designed to make it impossible for women to enter this world.
Even if it is a correct French accent, it still makes her lines really hard to understand for me. Anyway, there's a reprise of Anyone Can Cook sung by Linguini where Andrew really inhabits his inner Evan Hansen.
next morning, we roll up to the kitchen.
The music in this musical is really great so far. Even if it is written by a bunch of different people, it all fits together rather well. But it was at this point when I realized that Remy was gonna have to be in a hat for the rest of the show, and I got worried. Luckily, it didn't change much or feel too awkward, but it got my brain thinking, how would they do this on stage? I like to think it would be like a silhouette of sorts coming through Linguini's hat, and then Remy is kind of standing off stage, or maybe like a puppet or something, I don't know, but what a fun idea. There's a duet between Linguini and Colette. I don't have much to say about this one, but I like it. Her accent is too strong, there's a close-up that's way too close, there's 4 Colettes at one point. Moving on. Remy keeps monologuing, seriously? The whole time? Ratatouille the musical has really mastered the art of tell, don't show. Anyway, he says this lovely line.
I just wish, trigger warning, vulnerability, that my family was here to share it all with me.
God, that's about as cringe as it gets, actually. Or at least I thought, until Adam Lambert comes back. There's something really strange about the song Emile sings to persuade Remy into giving him and the colony food. For starters, I feel like in the original film, Emile is more of a lovable and oblivious goof that doesn't really understand anything outside of the colony. He's not really against Remy's ambitions, he's just more scared of the outside world and looking out for his little brother. This song kind of portrays him in a much more manipulative light, one where he's trying to get his brother to come back to the colony for good. Now on to Adam Lambert's performance. I don't really know what to say here. It's just so weird.
Rat's life for us, little Remy, we feast with the grime and the funk.
I mean, he's looking like way off screen for most of it, clearly reading his lyrics. His voice sounds fine, but why is he Emile? Also, this song feels like it was written just for him. It sounds right out of Rent.
The urge to cook is rattling my bones.
Grab some bread crust and grab some grass. It can be used as a garnish.
I don't need any more sass.
Remy, just listen to me and watch the magic grow. The rat.
Oh, and you might recognize that melody because it's the original TikTok. Once is fine, but twice can't get fooled again.
Rat's life for us, little Remy.
Say what you want about rats, but we sure know how to sell a musical number with just the right amount of cheese.
How did Adam Lambert get involved in this is my question. Did someone feel like they just couldn't say no to him?
It seemed like Colette was feeling some chemistry that wasn't exactly culinary.
Okay, Titus has officially grown on me. I don't even know what that means, but I love it. The show takes kind of a weird jump here. We skip all of the conflict between Linguini and Colette, which I find strange on a narrative level because it really deprives us of our all is lost moment, which therefore lessens the stakes of the rest of the musical. In fact, most of the conflict throughout the entire musical is glossed over, which just makes the story feel weaker in general.
Blah, blah, blah. Linguini told Colette about me, the rat in a hat. Blah, blah, blah. The humans fell in love. Big shocker there, blah, blah. And just...
They also decidedly skip Linguini and Colette's conflict by using this annoying-ass stock record scratch.
It's not me.
What do you mean?
Blah, blah, blah. Linguini told...
And the worst part is, I know it's a stock record scratch because I've used it in a video before.
So annoying and draining. Well, kiss those struggles goodbye. Hi. I'm Fretless Steven.
Anyway, the show skips to Linguini in a press room answering questions about his revitalization of Gusteau's restaurant while free stock camera flashes appear all over his face.
I'm Bethany Joanna Germanotta reporting from I'm Italian Internazionale. Did your old lady ever tell you about her secret affair?
My mother died when I was a child.
For some reason, each of the journalists are duplicated 3 times in the shot. I don't really know why they did this. I feel like maybe it was to make it feel like there were more people in the room, but why would they do that? Why would all 3 of these people be speaking in unison? Max, you're overthinking the Ratatouille musical again. Anyway, Linguini learns that famous food critic Anton Ego is coming to Gusteau's to try his food, and he sets Remy outside so he can focus. I'm not sure why, but this scene is portrayed like this. I need to watch this again, just so I can have like an authentic reaction.
Till he left the press conference so I can give him a piece of my mind? You bet I did. Let me tell you a story.
Enough! Hey, your opinion isn't the only one that matters.
I don't know why it is portrayed that way. But it's my favorite part of the entire musical. I could watch that scene forever. It's so funny. Why does he just start singing like that? I don't understand why they did that, but thank you. It's so funny.
Enough!
Moving on, Skinner, the antagonist, then finds out that Remy is the one cooking the food. He sings a song entitled I Knew I Smelled a Rat. This song is okay. It's not the strongest. It's sung by Mary Testa, who's kind of a Broadway deep cut. She's in a lot of William Finn's lesser-known musicals, like In Trousers and A New Brain, and she's in the 1999 revival of On the Town, and most recently as Aunt Eller in 2019's Oklahoma revival. It's really cool to see her in this, especially for theater nerds like me, but she kind of falls victim to the doing an impression of the character from the film syndrome.
Well, who'd have thought your hard was working underneath your hand? You have no talent of your own. I knew I smelled the rat. Dance break.
There's also a moment where all the rats fight Skinner, and it's portrayed in this very silly way.
I'm going to the health inspector.
Not so fast! Emil and his gang tied up.
The gang gets their food ready after kidnapping and serve it to Anton Ego. Oh my god, is that Andre de Shields? Yes, Andre de Shields is in Ratatouille the musical as Anton Ego, the intimidating and stoic food critic. What amazing casting. The fact that they pulled this off is so funny to me. I will say about the original film, however, the scene where Anton Ego takes a bite of the ratatouille and is immediately transported back into his childhood is one of the most beautiful scenes in any film I've ever seen. So translating that to a musical is already a really hard task. But are they able to do it? Unfortunately, not really. You see, I really do feel like it's hard to critique this as a musical because it really is more of an idea or a souped-up read-through. I have no doubt that if the song written to depict this scene was put on stage, it would make much more sense and feel much more akin to the film, but unfortunately, it just kind of falls flat in this version. There's a little boy who plays a young version of Anton Ego, and he's really cute and charming, but I just don't feel the same way when I watch this musical rendition, and especially because they're all singing in front of white walls, it just does not even compare to the movie. Which I, of course, knew going in, but it's still kind of a bummer.
It's good.
Mama. Anyway, Ego meets Remy, Gusteau's is shut down, and Remy and Linguini make their own restaurant.
One last thing.
But no one can compare.
Our finale ultimo here is an homage to everything that brought this musical to life, namely the TikToks that started it all, and I really like that. You really feel a sense of community when you see all the creators that put their heart and soul into this thing, and I love that they had the composers bow alongside the celebrity cast.
I didn't like this musical. I loved it.
Ratatouille the musical is far from perfect, but I think that's what makes it so charming. It has so much cringe, but at its core is heart. I went into watching this expecting to make an entirely different video, but it really grew on me and I ended up really loving this thing. I think what had happened was that I removed myself from January 2021, a time when live theater was entirely gone, and while Ratatouille did not save live theater, it was a bit of light in a really dark time for a lot of theater people, be that theater lovers or people who work in theater. And if this gave them a little bit of hope in a dark time, who cares how cringe it is? And it almost entirely proved all my reservations wrong. Disney even signed off on this thing, which means that maybe it could happen. I don't know, that one's still a little iffy. I love the Ratatouille musical, no matter how stupid it is. Part 5, where do we go from here? The Ratatouille musical was received rather well, but it's kind of fallen into obscurity within the past 2 years. It raised nearly $2 million for the Actors Fund, which is really respectable, especially during COVID. The Actors Fund provides financial assistance for theater workers along with many other services like rehabilitation and assisted living, and I honestly think that makes anything cringe or out of touch about this musical worth it. But why did people just forget about it? Well, unfortunately, it just never amounted to anything past the live stream. It peaked there, which to me is really sad, right? So much passion was put into this thing, only for it to rarely be talked about. I mean, how have so few people even just made videos about this? And I think it comes down to the fact that rather than waiting to put it on Broadway or off Broadway or even just a tryout somewhere, they just rushed to do the easiest thing possible at the time. And I would say more than half of that is COVID's fault, but I also think a lot of it is TikTok's fault, and to me that's sad. I hope that there is still a chance for something bigger to come of this, but unfortunately, I think that Remy the Ratatouille, the rat of all my dreams, has said his final musical goodbye. About a year later, TikTok produced yet another musical, one that is a lot different from Ratatouille the musical, but has a lot of the same inherent flaws and a lot of the same people behind it. But something is rather different about it. Something is off. Something is missing. What is that something? Well, that's a topic for another day. Anyway, that's gonna about do it for today's video. I really appreciate you all for watching. It means the world to me. Stay tuned for the next video where we're gonna be talking about the Cars musical, where Andrew Rannells is going to be playing Lightning McQueen. I know. Really quickly, I didn't put it in the last video, but I just want to say thank you for 1 million views on my illegal Hamilton video. That is insane to me, and you know, if you stuck around, thank you. It means a lot, and I'm glad you're here, and I love you. Not one to create a fan name, so someone come up with a Compound Productions fan name. Also, I don't say it in all my videos, but my name is Max. Nice to meet you. Remy's got something to say. What's that?